This is Comic Geek Speak, special Infinite Crisis episode number 2. And welcome to Comic Geek Speak, brought to you in conjunction with worldfamouscomics.com. Your spot on the internet for the best comic book and entertainment-related columns, contests, features, reviews, news, resources, and more. I'm Brian Deemer.
I'm Kevin Moyer.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Jamie D.
I'm Peter Rios.
We are sexy bitches, yeah!
And welcome to our special episode. We're going to talk about nothing but Infinite Crisis up to and including issue 2. And there will be plenty of spoilers.
Lots.
So if you haven't read it, don't listen. Joining us on the phone for the conversation is writer for DC Comics, Scott Beatty. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me.
It'll be really fun to get your take on the whole thing, since you get to play in this wonderful world that is the DC Universe. Before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Drawer Boxes, the really, really cool way to store your comics. The website is collectiondrawer.com, and what they are is they're basically a long box, cardboard long box that slides in and out of a cardboard casing, so you can stack them on top of each other and still access the comics on the bottom of the pile without moving all the boxes on top. I'm very excited because tomorrow I have 15 more of these things showing up in the mail, and I can finish putting all my comics in them, and my whole room will be transformed. Some guys on the forum bought a bunch of these, and the one guy got 180 of them. He's got thousands and thousands
like 40,
of comics.
40,000 comics or something
Yeah.
like that. He's got like an outrageous amount.
So he showed pictures of his room before and after, and it is way cooler after. He loves them. So check it out, collectiondrawer.com, and if you need a better way to organize your comics. All right. So,
we got Scott Beatty on the phone, and you didn't play the Infinite Crisis music.
I don't even remember what the Infinite Crisis music was.
Mozart.
Was the Mozart. That's right.
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys.
Oh, that's the theme song for Infinite Crisis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually from his Requiem, right? That's what we played? Yeah.
Maybe you can find it for the way out.
Yeah, I'll cue it up for them.
It should be Burning Down the House by the Talking Heads.
That's a good idea.
So now you're reading these as a fan as well, right? Because
I am. I actually I get comps from DC Comics, but for the first time in I don't know how long, I actually went to my comic store every week, and I've been buying the issue as they come out, just so that I can follow along.
Great, cool.
And keep the death count.
So it's changing stories that you're thinking about writing as you read each month, right?
Well, not so much. I mean, it's just that the DC Universe is being changed irrevocably, so I guess before I think about the stories that I would hope to write for DC, I'm just trying to see, who lives, who dies, and, who gets an extreme makeover.
Cool. And you have no insider information, right?
I have absolutely no insider information. I think, as I mentioned the last time we spoke, when I was writing Son of Vulcan, one of the great things about it was that I was free of all the Infinite Crisis tie-ins, and until I started seeing all the sales numbers for the tie-ins, and I said, hey, let me cross over. So, but I got to tell my story without having to be part of this giant story, and Son of Vulcan will appear in Infinite Crisis, but, what happens to him, I really can't tell you.
Speaking of Son of Vulcan, I have to really thank you you sent us copies that were autographed of the newest issue 6, and we really appreciate that.
Well, you're quite welcome. I'm shamelessly shilling. I'm thinking about starting an internet grassroots effort for more Son of Vulcan. So it's tentatively titled "Start a Fire." To try to get at least some kind of internet survey going, or just a list of signatures to try to bring back the character.
This is Shane. I'll be right on that bandwagon.
Well, when it starts, I'll let you guys know. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, please do. I got to admit that I only paged through the issue that I sent because after I saw, after I heard you talk about it and then saw how nice the artwork was, I went, well, now I want to read this whole thing. So now I can't read issue 6 and ruin the whole thing. So now I got to get the trade, hoping that there will be a trade, and so I can read the whole story.
Well, I wouldn't count on a trade, and that's not to say that there won't be a trade. It's just I don't know. I mean, there have been series that have come out that have sold less than Son of Vulcan that have been collected in trade paperback. Hard Time, was collected, and Manhunter, which hasn't had stellar sales, has been collected in trade paperback because it's supported up at DC. So I know they like Son of Vulcan, they like what I did, but that doesn't necessarily translate into, a definite trade. So I would encourage anybody who wants to read the issues to read them, to try to find them. And if there is a trade paperback, I'll do my level best to include some nifty DVD extras in order to make it worth their money.
Cool.
So, initial reaction to number 2?
Infinite Crisis?
Yep.
We can go around the room. Anybody would just like some quick thoughts? Who wants to start?
I was excited, and it gave me a whole lot of ideas about where they might be taking this. The whole thing. If they really do the Superman, brings Earth 2 as the primary Earth and puts Earth 1 on the back burner, I think that could be... At first I was like, oh, they can't do that. And I thought, well, now, we've had 20 years since Crisis. So we've been playing in Earth 1 for 20 years. Why don't the next 20 years we play with Earth 2? Why not? Who cares, right?
I care.
What happens on Earth 2 stays on Earth 2.
Yeah. Anybody else? Initial reactions?
I'm definitely intrigued about where they're going with certain things. I was curious to see how they're really going to pan out. Power Girl and Lois and Superman and Lex Luthor in the battlesuit up in the north, where he's going to go with that now.
Jamie?
I was just really happy to see Buddy Baker back. Yeah. The first thing is, where's my spacesuit? Just made me laugh out loud as soon as I read that, and I just, like I said, happy to see them use him. Really enjoyed Power Girl. Was really kind of, no pun intended, powerful the way they had her, and what they actually did with her. I really liked that. And I was telling them before we started this, I hadn't read the final 2 issues of JSA Classified, and so I didn't see what they had, where they had been setting it up and what they had been setting it for. So it was a little more powerful when I read this issue. I had a more powerful reaction to it. Not really seeing them doing what they were going to do with it, and just the whole ending. I really enjoyed it. I thought, it's kind of cool, and if they do it, you can kind of see now where they'll maybe bring back Beetle and some of the characters they killed off, and they can have that there. They can they can keep the universe they have now, and just let, I guess, people decide which one they want to go to. It'll give them, if this is issue 2 of 7 or 8, whatever it is. 7. So they still have 5 more issues to play around with stuff. So, and just. There was one more thing that I was thinking of as I was talking, as Shane was paging through, and I was looking at the pictures, and I can't think of it. So I'll go back to it, but go ahead. Who else?
I love how Batman is really going off the deep end, it seems, snapping at Alfred, and Alfred's like, even your father didn't want to be alone. It's just such a great dynamic that he's just spiraling downward, almost.
Right. Scott, what about you? Initial reaction?
I think that's in character with Batman. When the chips are down, he just becomes focused. And, Alfred usually, like any person that's closest to you, they take the brunt of your anxieties, I guess. My initial reactions are, holy crap. I bought the George Perez cover just for the gratuitous shot of, the backside of Power Girl. But it's weird. It's I'm thinking back on a lot of the major stories I've read from the past year and trying to see where all these little clues fall into place, because it seems like it's an effort to decomplicate the DC universe by bringing back the multiverse, and in a way kind of re-jumpstarting it, either for new readers or to make things a lot simpler. And the reason why I say that is that I just read the Supergirl collection from Batman Superman. I reread that because I'm working on an update of my Superman the Ultimate Guide. And Jeff Loeb talks about how Dan DiDio was at a ride, one of the Superman rides in, I think it was Pasadena, and he was reading the cards that they have in front of the ride that describe all the major characters. And they were describing Supergirl as an ectoplasmic being and an angel and blah, blah, blah. It just got so complicated. He's like, what? And so that was the whole effort behind bringing back Kara Zor-El, is to, make the character simpler, bring it back to its roots. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. We're seeing deaths of major characters in an effort to sort of relaunch the DC universe in a way that makes sense.
And I got that feeling when they got rid of Black Condor, Phantom Lady, and, basically them two, because even though they are taking over the mantle of the originals, they in no way connect to the originals. I think Phantom Lady does a little bit, but Black Condor was just a whole new character with the same name, so it made me wonder if, they're getting rid of the people that they just came up with in the late 80s, early 90s, to use the name to keep it in publication, but hopefully maybe down the road they'll try to bring back the originals or try to establish a connection to the original, like Starman, like even Mr. Terrific and the new Dr. Midnight and things like that.
Well, I'm writing a Dr. Midnight two-parter for JSA Classified, and it's still the new guy, so I have high hopes about that at least.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He is connected because he was the original. Helped his mother birth him, right? And he was I think that's how the connection is. And then the new Dr. Midnight went on to work under the old Ted McKnight as an intern or something like that. So the connection is there. That's why I think they will keep those characters. And plus, they're so strong. The new Dr. Midnight is such a strong character. The new Mr. Terrific is such a strong character. But Black Condor was kind of floundering, and the Phantom Lady nobody was really doing anything with her. So maybe now they'll use it to connect back.
It's a great way to clear the boards so that they can start new series. So you can get rid of these characters that are kind of, one-note characters and sort of rebuild it from the ground up. But, as a guy who wrote Son of Vulcan, which was a reimagining of an old character, I am a little worried.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what they do with Booster Gold, since this page in here has him coming back, wondering if he's back in time, and Skeets is like, no, sorry. He's like, oh, okay, well, now we'll have to find Martian Manhunter, and there's others that they want to contact. I'm really curious, because I'm a huge Blue Beetle and Booster Gold fan, so I'm really curious.
That was what I was trying to think of, the whole the whole Booster Gold, and exactly where was he from, since we already know Skeets got killed and dead, and who exactly is he, and what's he coming back? We kind of figured out he was coming back to stop something, but it doesn't look like he arrived in time.
He does feel older. This feels like an older Booster Gold.
Yeah, and he used to have a Legion flight ring, and of course that's out of continuity. So it's interesting to see which characters are being killed and which ones are still alive. I mean, after issue 1, I thought Uncle Sam was dead because he's face down in a pool of blood. And,
But he's still alive. Yeah.
He's still alive, yeah.
There was an interesting post that one of our hosts, Adam Murdo, and he talked about, there's this whole mind-wiping machine that the Lex Luthor, what we think is the pre-crisis Lex Luthor, is trying to develop. And he's taking all these characters like the Ray, and they're trying to go after somebody from the Marvel family, the Shazam family. And he thinks it's not a mind-wiping machine. He thinks that Luthor is trying to pick specific representatives from the 5 Earths that merged into one in Crisis. It would be like Earth X, which was the Freedom Fighters, which is where you get Ray. Earth S, which is the Shazam family, which is why they're going after Black Adam. Earth 2, which is why they were trying to get Power Girl. Of course, Earth 1, they have a slew of heroes, so that's nothing. And Earth 4, the old Charlton characters, which I kind of said, I wonder if maybe Blue Beetle's body is somewhere, and who's to say they need him alive or dead? So he came up with that theory, and I went, "Whoa, that's really good." I mean, he got that off of 2 issues. So we'll see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't think of that. I'm looking at this page that gives a little picture of each of the Earths. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wow, that really does make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a nice way to bring in the question too.
Yeah.
I thought this issue did a really good job of explaining some of the backstory that left you hanging in the first one. Now, we know it because,
Reading Crisis.
we read a lot of stuff. But if you were new to this and this was the first thing you read and you never read Crisis, it explains Crisis in a much easier and logical way than Crisis does.
The first issue was really just like all about action and throwing you in there, laying it all out, and then this issue kind of took a step back, breathed a little bit, still gave you some action, but really I thought started you down a nice little path. It's funny, it's not quieter, but it felt a little quieter, a little easier, a little softer in the storytelling.
Yeah, I thought the first issue was a lot like Crisis on Infinite Earth number 9 or 10, the one with all the villains, where, you've got Chemo killing Aqua Girl, and, the villains are just kicking butt every single page, and it looks like they just might win. And, then we move forward, of course, and, they write the universe, and everything's happy again.
So let's go real superficial. Which cover do you like the best?
Me?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll start with you.
What do you mean, one or two?
The Perez or the lead. Do you have a preference off the
I like the Perez, and I think it's just nostalgia because it sort of, harkens back to the original Crisis. And I've always been more of a Perez fan than a Lee fan, and that's no slight to Jim. It's just, preference. But, they're just so jam-packed. I mean, you look at that jewel facet cover with Power Girl, and, every single little facet's got, some nugget of DC history. And it's, DC history that's, pre-crisis, post-crisis, and I can't even believe that I'm actually using those terms again, pre-crisis, post-crisis. And because, for a lot of readers, it just doesn't make sense. They've never heard it before because they've been reading, post-crisis.
Right.
I remember explaining to one of the editors at DK when we were working on the Ultimate Guides and using pre-crisis and post-crisis, and he was absolutely lost. He said, stop. I don't get it. So
what is it going to be now? Post-crisis, or
Well, they're canceling books and renumbering books. It's a house cleaning. It's starting over and bringing in a whole new generation of readers. And to me, it feels like there's that one line that resonates with me in number 2 where they talk about how that Superman of Earth 2 is saying how things got dark, and you've got Clark and Lois looking at the Hall of Newspaper. And you've got the death of Superman. There's a flashback to Bane breaking Batman's back, and it just seems like this is an effort to sort of get away from that grim and gritty attitude that just dominated comics from '86 forward, and sort of injecting some life and optimism into our heroes again.
I wonder if DC's gonna, Dan DiDio's gonna mandate to the writers to say, "Hey, let's put on our happy faces for a while after this is all over."
There was that one article where Mark Waid did say something to that effect, where he was like, we're going to try to move away, get Batman back away from, not being so dark and getting our heroes back to being heroes again. I think it's something sort of like that. So
yeah, but that's Batman. I mean, Batman is dark. I mean, when I was writing Gotham Knights, Bob Scheck was telling me that, this is a kinder, gentler Batman coming out of, Fugitive and Bruce Wayne Murderer. And I'm thinking, are we talking about the same character here? Bruce Wayne may smile, but it's all an act. I mean, Batman doesn't laugh. Nothing matters but the war. And, that was just something that I wrestled with in writing the series, is that, Batman doesn't take this lightly. He's never going to take it lightly,
Now, can we still get a Batman that's maybe not so driven but still stays in character? Maybe after all this, a Batman that doesn't pluck people's eyes out and things like that?
Well, I think Batman can trust, and he can delegate authority more. He can trust his sidekicks. But you're coming away from storylines where spoiler was Robin and she died, so that, it's a constant reminder. And then Jason Todd comes back to life. So I don't know. I mean, moving forward in the Bat books, I think it's going to be a real paradigm shift in how they imagine Bruce Wayne, if he's still Batman when this is all over, because there's been rumors about that too.
Right. Going back to the cover, if anybody out there can tell me what little snippet, it's when you look at Andy Lanning's name on the top right cover, there's a little facet there above Oa. I cannot tell what that character is. So if anybody out there ever...
You're talking right there?
No, I'm talking this one right there, right off the G. It's like right off the ING of Lanning.
Oh, I have to look at that. Hold on.
I cannot... it's so small. It looks like he has a visor. It looks like he's got something. I cannot figure that out for the life. It's the only one on this whole image that I can't figure out.
Here, give me that. I'll is that a question for you?
Sure, Brian.
It's Speedball up there in the corner, right there.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The crisis is going much deeper than we ever thought.
Now, this is one where I also like the Perez cover more than the Jim Lee, because something about the composition of some of the characters is just doesn't gel with me.
I only picked it up because DCBS always sends me the Perez covers, and so last month I got 2 Perez covers.
Oh, okay.
So this month I bought the Jim Lee on the newsstand, so I ended up with both.
I like the Perez covers for the composition. Like Scott said, he throws so much into it. It's just gorgeous. The amount of characters he can throw into a panel, a page, a poster. It's just incredible. I like Jim Lee. I've always been a fan of Jim Lee, but the Perez covers are always just a little more impressive.
Hey, now, did you know? I'm looking at this though. I think Jim Lee might have made a boo-boo here on his. On the S on the Earth 2 Superman does not match the S in the interior, which has like the curly, loopy S. So.
And which way does he have it?
He has like the standard Superman S.
And on the Jim Lee cover, I think Lois Lane's legs are a little too sexy for someone older.
That's control top panties. You know?
But there, I think Power Girl, as a regular figure picture, I think the Jim Lee cover does it a nice job. It's not quite as over the top as what I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, because she gets a little skewed in the pages.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Phil Jimenez fan, and I thought this issue was laid out. Just the layouts, the panels, just were great. Getting each character right, getting Paradise Island right.
Well, I was going to say the Themyscira pages or panels are really gorgeous. Yeah,
I mean, he really is doing his research, and the greatest thing, I don't know if anybody caught it, is on page 1 where Animal Man's children, one of them is wearing a Scare Tactics shirt, which is an old comic, and the other one, Maxine, is wearing the Big Belly Burger with the slash through it, which is it's a restaurant in the DC universe, the Big Belly Burger, and she's against eating. She's a vegetarian against eating meat. So
and Big Belly Burger shows up in Son of Vulcan. That's where he first meets Vulcan.
A little cross connection there.
Exactly.
So that attention to detail is really cool. I like when they do things like that.
I thought that Superman transformation at the bottom of page 8 is gorgeous.
Plus, he says, what does he say? He says, time for action. Yep. There's also on page 1, there's a Thanagarian helmet from the old Animal Man series.
Yeah, I must say I did enjoy the Perez cover, too. There were a couple of things I was looking at throughout most of the little snippets, the little pictures in the prisms. They have, you pretty much pick out everything in the issue. Now, I found 3 pictures that I couldn't put in this issue. There was one of the Gentleman Ghost on the bottom. There was one of Darkseid, and then there's one of Lady Quark. And everything else is at least mentioned. I mean, you got Arian up top. You see both rocket ships. You got the Monitor and Harbinger, flashes of 2 worlds, the death of Supergirl, all that. And everything else was mentioned in this book. I was just wondering if maybe there was a little significance to those being there and not. I don't think they were mentioned in issue 1 either. I know you've seen Lady Quarks in one of the issues somewhere along the line. I remember seeing her. I mean, not in Infinite Crisis. I'm talking about all the preludes and stuff like that. I can't remember where I saw her, but just maybe I'm reading more into it too. But I don't think he puts stuff into things that aren't supposed to be there. So
right.
And for me, just as an old-time reader of Animal Man, I loved the line that I feel like roadkill. Because if anybody's ever read that series, that was a whole storyline where he kind of got run over.
And had to rebuild himself.
Yep, he had to rebuild himself, going through all the animal kingdom. So that was, I read that and I laughed out loud.
I missed that.
It's interesting because he says that line, yet Cliff and Maxine seem a little bit younger. I mean, at the beginning of the series than they did at the end of the series.
Yeah, no, you're right. I thought that too.
It's kind of like a mix of both universes, Vertigo and DC.
I was kind of excited to see the Joker come up and actually have something but you're wondering what he's going to do now.
That was a brilliant scene. That scene, and somebody mentioned on the forum, they thought it was just very humorous that a Joker took out a royal flush. It was a really good scene. They're cannon fodder, though, the Royal Flush gang. Every time they show up, they're cannon fodder.
Yeah, but Hijack was great back in the Secret Society of Supervillains, so that's kind of a nice nod. And you see the beheaded Ace from Justice League down there, and they're just all dead.
So the cliffhanger, like what Brian was talking about, I don't think they're going to go that route. They'll make the next 20 years a basis off of Earth 2. But it certainly adds something to the whole, what is really going on with the Earth 2 Superman. Is it because he even mentions about being on this world, affects people. So are they so pure that they're being affected even faster? Is something going on with them? Something with Alexander Luthor. He's kind of shifty. He hasn't been a major player. He's kind of, they've talked to him a little bit, and then they get away from him. And
he has much better hair this time around.
Yeah. I actually missed the fro. I kind of missed that big orange curly mess.
I just read that DC Direct's releasing a figure where he's got the fro, which is a removable feature on the figure, which gives me hope that they'll do a Black Lightning character with, the fro mask.
That's funny.
So I just had a thought. What if the last issue they're saying that the jump in time is supposed to happen between issues 4 and 5 or something?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, what if they end the series with everything on Earth 2, but then the 52 brings it back to Earth 1.
Oh, okay.
And so that whole year is how they go from Earth 2 back to Earth 1. That's what I was just thinking.
That'd be interesting.
Because it would give them something to do in 52 issues.
Mm-hmm. And then we'd come back to 1 year later, and it's
right.
all status quo is updated or changed. Yeah.
I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that.
So what he's saying is at the end of issue 4, Superman of Earth 2 would succeed, and a new Earth would be created based off of Earth 2.
Right.
Because they keep mentioning in articles that between 4 and 5, or is it 4 and 5 or 5 and 6? I forget. Something happens, and then the last 2 issues of Infinite Crisis already take place a year later.
Oh, wow.
That's at least that's what I'm getting from some of the articles, and from what they're saying.
Right.
Maybe they're changing their plans. I don't know. So that and then this series wraps up, then 52 starts. So maybe in 52 we get what happens in, like Brian says, the whole Earth 2 is now the prime Earth that the new Earth is based on, and that'd be interesting. I'd feel a little more comfortable knowing that we're not going to get, like you said, the next 20 years based on Earth 2.
It would make a lot of sense that if they used Earth 2 as the template, where the Justice Society was active during World War II, just as it is on Earth 1, and kind of move forward from there, then, it gives them an opportunity to sort of fix the timeline once and for all, and say that, the JSA was active during World War II, and the JSA that we have now, minus a couple of characters that should be, 90 years old, is the JSA. So you kind of have a golden age, a silver age, a modern age, and then whatever this new age is, moving forward 1 year later.
Right. Yeah.
And then, you could have Wonder Woman during, World War II, and then her daughter or granddaughter could be the new Wonder Woman that starts issue number 1 of that series when it's relaunched. And then, of course, you have to kind of figure out where Superman plays into all this.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting coming out of Crisis that, I don't know if it was just nostalgia on Marv Wolfman's part, but to put Superman and Lois and Superboy and Alexander Luthor in this little heaven and just kind of tuck them away, it just, to me, it smacks of just being unwilling to kill your darlings, in the relaunch, but I can't imagine that there was this long-term plan to bring them back, because we haven't seen them for, 20 years.
Right. We saw Superman 2 kind of in the Kingdom event.
Yeah.
But not to this effect.
Well, hyper time.
Yeah.
Which you can wrap your brain around that.
Yeah, which I'm sure will play a part somewhere along the way. We got Morrison and Wade and all those guys on 52. You know that hyper time is coming back.
But didn't Wolfman say he wasn't going to ever kill any character that was created before he was born or something along those lines? He wasn't going to kill off any of those characters? So I was thinking that's probably why he just tucked him away where he tucked him.
I've heard that. Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, it's weird to see which characters live and die. In this, if it's an attempt to wipe out the '80s characters, that's great. But then we see the Royal Flush Gang, which came from the '60s. Unless they're going to bring back the Flush Gang, like the Batman Beyond version, which is infinitely cooler.
Right.
Yeah, but how many times have we killed off the Royal Flush Gang? I mean, they seem to die in every time they want to kill off a supervillain team. They always seem to be the ones.
Oh,
like you said, cannon fodder.
And Kite Man,
Poor Kite Man, poor rat catcher.
Kite Man actually showed up in my first issue of Gotham Knights. He didn't have a costume, and I had Kite Man, the Corrosive Man, and God, I'm drawing a blank now, but it was another lame Batman villain, and I had them be high-tech thieves that gave up their costumes just because they knew how lame they were. And they still get their butts handed to them, but the only reason why I could use them was because I only referred to them by their names.
That's funny.
And not those, dreadfully bad costumes.
Now, I wonder if, to go along with what we're talking about, this whole Earth 2 merge thing, there's a lot of people who, at the time of Crisis on Infinite Earths and the Superman revamp, where they felt that a DC universe where Superman is not the first hero is kind of blasphemous almost in a way. So I wonder if, God, would they dare toy with that again and put him back as the first hero? And as you're saying about, he'd have to exist sometime before World War II. I mean, could they get away with something like that? I don't know. Don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, he'd have to have a son or something like that. And
yeah.
And that's a big franchise, and the franchise in many ways drives the bus sometimes. I mean, you've got a major movie coming out next year that establishes Superman as rocketed to Earth from the planet Krypton, and he exists in modern times. And I can't imagine DC would monkey too much with that, because the core concept is what's easy to understand. When you get away from that and you do an Incredible Hulk where he gets his powers from radioactive starfish, and his father is the Absorbing Man, it just doesn't make sense, and audiences won't come back for a second viewing.
I often thought that Superboy might get thrown back into the Legion of Superheroes to make it Superboy and the Legion again, but now I'm thinking, what if he would somehow become the next Superman as the younger version and still have the Earth 1 Superman be with the JSA and have his time and passes it on to the younger one now?
What's funny is that we get this return of the Earth 2 Superman, which was a character, a pretty substantial character, and we have basically the post-crisis Superman, and it kind of makes me wonder if we're ever going to see the pre-crisis Superman, the Kurt Swan Superman, I guess you could say, because if you think about it, these two Supermen never met. Technically, they've never met before. So, if you really want to make it an all-encompassing crisis, will we see the Kurt Swan Superman?
I don't understand who this Kurt Swan Superman is.
My brain just exploded, I think.
In the Crisis on Infinite, the original Crisis on Infinite, the Superman that's in that Superman was then revamped by John Byrne in '86.
Okay. That was whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
Right. Well, that
it ended with whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
And so even though this John Byrne Superman technically fought in the new crisis that happened when all the Earths merged, there's like this, okay? He never met the Earth 2. This is a whole new Superman. This Superman.
Well, where did he come from then? If it's a whole new Superman.
Well, it's just when the timelines got when the Earths merged, there were new origins for
when
these
the timeline
heroes.
realigned, everything got shifted.
We got it. That's why you see on the cover, you see Earth 2 Superman's rocket ship, the pre-crisis Superman's rocket ship, and the John Byrne Kryptonian rocket ship. These are actually three different... This is the Earth 2 Superman, this is Earth 1 Superman, and this is the post-crisis Superman.
Post-crisis Earth 1 Superman.
Well,
post-crisis current.
Yeah. You can't really call it Earth 1. I guess you can, but...
Blood is now gushing out of my ears.
I have no idea what you're even saying.
It makes sense. If you think about it, it makes sense. And it kind of... I don't know. That'd be really interesting.
The older you get, the less sense it makes. I mean, when I was a kid, I had no problem, rectifying the fact that Superboy would fly into the future and be a part of the Legion of Superheroes, and they would never tell him what his future would be in order to not screw up the timeline. And he resisted the temptation to look up historical chronicles, many of which were lost in the Great Disaster or the World War 27, and then go fly home and live a normal life. And as a kid, I didn't have any problem with that. But as an adult and as a writer trying to make sense of this, God, it just beggars the mind. I mean, it's just Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3. You know, it made sense to consolidate them all, even if we lost some great characters. But you know, in the end, wow.
It almost makes sense if they would bring it back.
Well, you know, Power Girl makes more sense, and she's much more fun as the cousin of Superman. But we got Supergirl. You know, when you make her from, you know, Atlantis. When I wrote the Power Girl one-shot for Circle of Fire, you know, I tried to downplay a lot of this stuff. And, you know, I said she was an Atlantean, and you know, she had a couple different costumes. And I played her up as this fashion plate that she just didn't like to wear the same clothes all the time. But, you know, how do you take this character and make her make sense? You know, when you have Supergirl. You know, the Huntress from Earth 2 was much more fun as the daughter of Batman and Catwoman than, you know, this really sadistic mafia princess. So, I don't know. I guess, you know, you're going to get your favorites, and maybe you're not going to get your favorites when all this is said and done.
Right. I mean, I when they did that whole Power Girl origin, and they just, you know, they teased you for a while, and they said, oh, well, she's from the future. Oh, nope, she's from Atlantis. Oh, no. And then they finally just said, no, she really is just the Earth 2 Superman's cousin. I went, okay, I'm okay with that. I know, like you said, your logical mind, part of your brain wants to go, no, that's not right because the Earth 2 doesn't exist anymore, but it's comics, you know. So in my mind, I'm like, no, I think it can exist. I'm okay with that. So you know, if the outcome of this is to yet give her another origin, I'd be like, oh God, not again. We're just gonna have another same problem for 20 years.
I can kind of I don't know nearly as much about this as you do, but reading this issue and having them explain the whole Power Girl thing, and they said she just kind of slipped through the cracks when all these Earths were merging and ripping apart and being destroyed. One person slipped through the cracks. I can buy that. If over the next 5 years they start springing up characters, oh, this guy slipped through the cracks, and this guy, then it starts to get annoying. But one person. That was, you know, when universes are merging, yeah, I could guess something would slip through the cracks. I mean, that's kind of, you know.
Happens on Star Trek all the time.
What does Stephen Hawking have to say about that? You know.
Star Trek, my God, if they took away all the time-flipping, rearranging episodes, you'd lose half the shows.
Yeah.
In my mind, it would almost be more fun if the multiverse just came back and we had all the Earths. Because Superman and Captain Marvel in the same world, it just inevitably becomes a grudge match, you know, who's stronger. But the Marvel family on their own Earth, you know, when they had the old cereal in the back of World's Finest, that was cool. Even in its hokiness, it's cool. You run it up against Superman, and then you've got to make some kind of logical sense out of Mr. Mind and make him serious. And he's not meant to be serious. He's a talking worm, you know. And if you put the Justice Society on Earth 2 and the Justice League on Earth 1, then when they get together every summer and have their crossover, it has some resonance. It's not just like, hey, you know, we're going to bop down to Gotham City and hang out with the Justice Society. I mean, to be quite frank, it seems like the Earth has too many heroes. But if you split them up and put them on their respective Earths once again, then Captain Atom is, you know, he's a real badass. He's not just, you know, nuclear-powered guy next to Firestorm, next to, you know, whoever you've got. To be honest, you know, as a writer, I'm thinking right now, wow, the multiverse would be cool again.
Yeah, but I don't have that much room in my head for trivia. That's just too many possibilities then.
Yeah, but DC was built on that. I mean, it's almost like at some point you have to embrace the hokiness, and if you embrace the hokiness, then you know you can live with Beppo and the Legion of Super Pets and imaginary stories and, you know, Superman Red and Superman Blue. When you try to make them serious, they just don't come off as well. You know, Bizarro should be a guy who speaks backwards and, you know, does stupid things. He shouldn't be just this, you know, Frankenstein monster.
Now, would you want to see it go from a total, reverting back to where all the, like the JSA originated from Earth 2, or would you want it to see, and I'm just, you know, kind of thinking out loud, if by the end of this series we do get the multiverse back, but what happens is everybody has to pick an Earth. You know, there's all these Earths, and they go, oh, I guess the JSA should go over there. So it's like, it's a known thing that they're separating. You know, they all came from one Earth, but they have to go to the other Earths. You know, I mean, I for one hope if they're going to bring back the multiverse, just bring it back. You know, don't try to.
The characters shouldn't know about it until they first meet.
Right.
Until Flash of Two Worlds. You know, you go back to that and you make that the origin point for it. You know, hey, I read about you in comic books. Wow, we're both Flashes. Instead of, you know, Jay's the grandfather, Barry's the father, Wally's the son, Bart's the grandson. Then you have this whole Flash family, And, none of them are very cool because everybody runs fast. So, it works for a couple of stories, and then after that, nobody's special anymore because they're all super.
Right. And, I mean, it lasted how many years? It was, DC Universe was like that for 50 years before somebody said, we have to start making sense of this. Well, maybe we got 20 years of that, and we found out it doesn't make much sense, and everybody's, now we need to get it back again.
Well, what's interesting is that it came out of necessity. I mean, superheroes were popular in the 40s, and then they went away from that. You had cowboy comics and horror comics and, true crime and romance. And then when the superheroes came back in the 60s, it was part of the whole Silver Age revamp. So it made sense to kind of, restart everything. And then as DC acquired the characters from companies they sued out of existence, it sort of made sense to compartmentalize them because, they had their core brand, and then these were sort of the cast-offs. And, we want to publish them, but we don't want to, they're the idiot cousins, the redheaded stepchild. So, we create Earth 4 for the Charlton characters and Earth S for the Shazam family, et cetera, et cetera. And then, at a certain point, they have so many characters, they're like, well, let's put them all on the same Earth. And you have Crisis, and now you have Infinite Crisis.
Yeah.
And next you're going to have, Eternal Crisis in 20 years.
Crisis.
Yeah, Crisis.
Crisis of the Crisis.
Secret Crisis.
Peter,
We're doing Stump the Rios?
we're doing a Stump the Rio Special Crisis Edition. And, since Scott's here, maybe he can be your backup in case you, decide to not know all the answers. All right.
Just in case you couldn't hear us there, Scott, we're doing Stump the Rios. Some trivia. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. Question number 1, Peter. When Dr. Light went back to the Watchtower in Identity Crisis, what was he there to get?
Oh, I forget about that. Teleportation information.
Scott, do you know the answer?
No, I don't.
Anybody?
Shane?
I thought it was that he was going back for his light gun. Yeah.
Oh.
That is correct.
Now the Justice League doesn't know that, but then in the book that they cut away to a panel of the picture of the light gun, like Hawkman or something says that we don't really know what he was doing there. Some have surmised, and then they cut away to a picture of the light gun.
Why didn't he just build a new light gun? I mean, that's what he did in the first place.
That's too
He mislaid the plans.
The fact that the Justice League keeps all of these, weapons of mass destruction in a trophy room. Here's a bell jar and, wheel to summon, infinite evil just in case.
But it makes a pretty ornament.
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman could have
It's kind of vain, It's like, hey, we're so great. Here's our trophies.
Look what we've accomplished.
Couldn't Batman take a chip out of that light gun and make it not work or something? Cut a wire or something?
Oh, well, sure, yeah. You render it, inert like most guns that are on display in museums,
Right.
Why doesn't Superman just, kick it into the sun or something?
All right, question number 2. Who was the Spectre shown fighting in the first issue of Day of Vengeance?
Blackbriar Thorn.
That is correct. And finally, question 3. Who are all 6 heroes who visit Brainiac's ship in issue 11 of Crisis on Infinite Earths?
It's the Forgotten Heroes. Dolphin, Adam Strange, Captain Comet, Rip Hunter. Trying to see that. Animal Man, Atomic Knight.
That's 6.
Is that 6?
That's 6. There you go.
Was Adam Strange one of them?
Yep.
Wasn't Cave Carson in there?
I'm
not saying you're wrong. I'm just...
Yeah, I don't think he was one that went out in these because they were all like the space. Although it makes you wonder why Dolphin was out there.
Well, just because she had the Daisy Dukes, of course.
That's right. But that's the 6 that he has? That I said?
Yes, those are the 6 he has.
Cool.
And he's also got a some theory. This is from Tim DeMar, by the way, Dark Knight Batman on our forum.
Okay.
And he says The event that allowed the characters at the end of Infinite Crisis #1 to come to our Earth is because when Ran was Zeta beamed, it caused a rip in the space-time fabric, and they took advantage of it and came here. That's what his theory is. There you go.
What happened when Oa was destroyed? I mean, that's the center of the universe. Why didn't that do it?
Everything got
I
shifted.
don't know.
I don't know. No, the biggest thing that I was hoping they were going to reveal on this, and they didn't, is who it was on the watchtower before it blew up, and they left us hanging again. I was like, oh, you.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Any guesses on that, Scott?
Who was on the watchtower?
Right. Before it blew up. That was in JLA 119, I think. When
Yeah, right before Infinite Crisis.
Martian Manhunter turns, and it says Superman on the teleportation thing, and we see a red cape, but we don't know who it is, and then the watchtower blows up, and that leads into Infinite Crisis 1.
Maybe it was Ultraman.
Ultraman?
Well, that would recognize as Superman. I mean, if it was looking for Kryptonian DNA, I mean, he's essentially the Superman of Earth 3.
Unless it's your missing Superman, Peter.
I think it's the Earth 1 Superman. That's what I think.
When whoever it is has Martian Manhunter still kind of held up somewhere.
Because I can't find him.
Now, did y'all read that JLA issue that I opened up and y'all yelled at me for?
No.
Yeah, actually, I started reading that, and I saw they do kind of that stupid chick from the Aquaman series.
Manitou Raven.
finds Martian Manhunter, but Martian Manhunter doesn't know where he is, and before he can reveal, of course, he's whisked away, and she comes out of her trance. She's like, "Oh, you pulled me out of my trance. He was going to tell me where he was," and blah blah blah. And it was like, I hate that girl. God, kill her.
Keeping us hanging. What else? There was something else I wanted to talk about this issue.
I have another email here. Let me find one here.
You may get your wish, Jamie. If I read the next two issues right, it just seems like somebody that they are going to get rid of.
I hope so.
This is an email from Jeff Kaskudis, and he says about issue 2, he loved it. He got into comics a little before the original, and it feels like a continuation. He says some high points for me. Seeing Animal Man again. He says, although with such a heartwarming scene, I hope his life insurance policy is up to date. He says he likes the "It's Been a Long Time" cousin. And he says, every time I see Earth 2 Superman, I still get a chill. Uncle Sam isn't dead. I'm not sure why I like him so much, but I do. Booster Gold, I so want to see him be useful as a hero. That's not funny. What was who said that? That's not funny. Is it Joker maybe or something?
Yeah, the Joker.
He says that the right Earth could return. He says, I'm assuming it's not going to work, but still is an interesting idea. And 3 Luthors. What's up with Armored Lex and who's controlling him? Where or when did Society Luthor come from? And what is Alexander Luthor's real motivation? So
something's up with the battlesuit Luthor. Because as Earth 2 Superman flew overhead, he seemed to be...
He was all confused and like...
Yeah, what am I doing in the battlesuit?
Yeah, what am I remembering? Why can't I remember?
I was almost thinking, did somebody enter him? Like, was somebody hitching a ride on Earth 2 Superman and then took over, like, is there some kind of weird person floating around, like an astral projection of somebody or something?
Could it be, I don't know, couldn't it be Brainiac in that suit? Because in the previous issue, wasn't he in a submarine somewhere up there, and he was completely fine of all his faculties, and you saw the suit come out of the floor, or he walked in a room or something, and if he put it on, maybe something jarred him back then even, and just took off to the Antarctic the Antarctic to find the Fortress of Solitude or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because he's he starts off, I am Lex Luthor, and I why can't I think? Why am I wearing this armor? What is wrong with me? Doesn't mean that has to still be Luthor talking. It could be somebody else. And they're also doing that kind of in one of the Superman books too, where his brain is short-circuiting for some reason.
Well, do you remember when he at the end of the Superman Batman arc, where he was in the sewers with the armor, and he said, a crisis is coming. Mm-hmm. I recall in Crisis on Infinite Earths when the redheaded Luthor from Earth 2 came out and was kind of, trying to assert himself. And it was either Brainiac or Simon said, we don't need two Luthors, and just disintegrated him.
Right. So you think maybe that Luthor's coming back, or
well,
no?
My theory is that it's kind of like the laws of physics. Two objects can't occupy the same space. So you have these characters that are kind of in the same space, and they're sort of, vying for time. So maybe, the Luthors can't all think at the same, or all operate at the same level,
cool.
Because they're all sharing this kind of the same space and time.
I sort of wonder if there's bits and chunks of the Anti-Monitor floating around in some of these people, in especially Alexander Luthor or Superman 2 because of the great battle at the end of Crisis. And are we going? Is that the evil force that's going to come back? I kind of think that's a little too easy, but
they've been saying for a long time how the seeds of this have been sown for a long time in the DC books, and I can't imagine that the death of Harbinger in Superman Batman wasn't specific in kind of and she was the one who could split her body into several parts and kind of was integral into bringing the Earth together and dealing with all this mumbo jumbo. And Supergirl could have befriended any Amazon, but she befriended Harbinger, and she's the first to die. And slowly but surely things start to fall apart after that.
Sheds a different light on Supergirl, because she feels real alien. She feels really alien to me. Even in this, where she's like, there's no word for escape in my language. I talk to myself mostly in Kryptonese. There's something about her that just doesn't tweak right.
Yeah, and then Krypton is back to being Krypton and not, the Byrne version of it. And, things are kind of, have been rewriting themselves along the way. So, it's, I don't know, it seems like there's been a long-term plan in place to kind of write things or to rewrite things to a certain level of continuity.
We got all the kryptonite, different colored kryptonite back.
Yeah.
Crypto. Yeah.
All the stuff that people grew up reading and loving and, somehow didn't make sense in 1986 when they relaunched the books. Like, no, he can't have a dog. He can't have a cousin from Krypton also. We got to, make sure that he's the last Man of Steel. And, we didn't care about that. Give him a dog. Give him a monkey.
Cool. Any other emails or anything? Or
just one. David Brown has had a few comments about issue 1. He said he's got over 5,000 DC comics in his collection, so he's a huge DC fan. But he agrees that he thinks Phil Jimenez might have been inked a little too heavily in the series, because we were talking about that last time. And but he loves, he still loves the artwork. He's excited about 52. He says in the days where trades are king, weekly comics will breathe new life into the medium. He says he'd love to see 52 be so successful that they pull all Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman titles into single weekly comics. Does that mean
sound you're hearing right now are the brains of editors on those titles and writers exploding simultaneously?
I guess if there are so many dang Batman titles that they could have one a week, and they could kind of weave it together, sort of.
There's at least 3 Supermans. It wouldn't be much to put a 4th one in there for a 4th week.
Oh, but see, that makes logical sense, but it goes against marketing. I mean, one great X-Men book would be awesome. One great Superman book would be awesome. But you got to bring 4 out because that makes more money.
We've been saying that up and down, especially like the X books. Just have one, just one Uncanny X-Men, and I could see, Batman, I'll give you 2 because of Detective and Batman both being such long-running titles. Which one would you cancel, if you only had one? So I'll give you 2 Batmans. But Superman could go right back to Action Comics, and, you'd be fine.
I remember reading Grant Morrison's proposal for Justice League back before, or JLA before it was launched. And, this was when we had Justice League America, Justice League Europe, Justice League Antarctica, Justice League, Liechtenstein, Justice League Task Force, Justice League Your Mama, and Grant's proposal said, look, the Justice League should be, the Moose Lodge of superheroes, the Elks Club. It should be the biggest and brightest. And DC waits a few months, comes back with JLA, and bam, it does gangbusters because that's the Justice League. One title, and then slowly but surely over the years we start seeing Justice League Elite, formerly known as the Justice League. I can't believe it's not the Justice League. Justice League Light.
Yeah, they start to forget.
So there is a precedence that it could work.
Well, yeah, when you start, compartmentalizing the franchise and dividing it, you split the audience too, and comics are expensive. Teen Titans is great. Teen Titans East, well, that makes sense, but is it going to be just as good? Outsiders Down Under. I mean, come on.
I mean, you could. I guess I don't know. Maybe it's just because she's not as popular as Superman, Batman, but Wonder Woman's only had one series.
Yeah, but she's always struggled to find an audience. I mean, this is a character who, they just don't really know what to do with. They give her friends, and that helps to give her a private life. But she's always Wonder Woman. It's not like, they took away Diana Prince, so you never see the trials and tribulations of Diana Prince because she's always together. It's not like Clark Kent walking down the street and tripping over a crack in the pavement. And they never give Wonder Woman a boyfriend, a serious boyfriend, since the Steve Trevor days. It's like they're afraid to make her not the virgin princess. And, she's got to be this paradigm of truth, justice, and the American way in the way that Superman isn't held to those same standards.
Yep, I hear you.
But, if Joss Whedon does a gangbusters movie with Wonder Woman and, starring, actress X, then, it may shift entirely.
Yeah, but he's against the Star-Spangled Panties, as he says.
Well, when you look at him on screen, it just, it does make sense.
Come on. You can't change. Look, if anything Spider-Man taught us is you can do the costume right.
Yeah, but look what they did with Batman. I mean, they put him in latex.
Yeah, and I hate that.
Yeah.
Because, if you see that dead-end fan film, which, it doesn't exist because you work for DC, and that's, no. He's in just a regular costume with the clothing, cloth material, and it looks good. I buy it.
Yeah, but he's got to have body armor. I mean, it just makes more sense in some way. I mean, he should be able to turn his neck, unlike the characters in the films and most of the action figures. But I'm not crazy about the new Superman costume where he's got the S on his belt buckle too, and the boots seem a little too short. But in some ways, it kind of feels like a 1940s costume, and that's kind of neat.
Well, and I think some of the images we've seen too, the whole, even Lois Lane and some of the suits they're wearing is kind of a throwback to some of that too.
Yeah.
Well, that timeless quality seems to work. I think if you look at the animated series, Batman and Superman, boy, that kind of retro Art Deco just really made it feel timeless. Even rotary phones, when you see those, like when you see a cell phone in the movie now, it's conscientious. It draws attention to itself. If James Bond had a cell phone in Dr. No, things would have been a lot different. He would have called in an airstrike. But instead he's singing Underneath the Mango Tree with Ursula Andress, and taking, radioactive showers.
Oh my goodness!
It's when Chuck Dixon and I were writing Batgirl Year One. We were using computer jargon and terminology, and we thought, God, in 5 years this will be dated, in a sense. So we really have to be careful. And when you have an artist like Marcos Martin who is in that sort of style, like you're talking about, that works. But boy, the minute even in like Son of Vulcan, the minute you use a cliche term or a bit of slang, boy, 6 months later you read it and you cringe. You're like, oh man.
For the days when Batman used to pull files out of a filing cabinet.
Or the computer would say, processing.
Right, yeah.
File punch cards,
So simpler. Everything was just so simpler 20 years ago.
Oh, definitely.
And you could say the same about that when you were in 1986. 20 years ago it was simpler too, when Batman was wearing pink suits and going out to space.
Shh, that didn't happen.
Oh, yes, it did. And it sold
count.
well.
Yeah, but there are people who love that, and Mark Waid is one of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally.
I'm the Batman of the Planet Zine. Well, hello, Batman. Let's work together.
The Rainbow Batman.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's writing Brave and Bold soon. At least that's what they say anyway, so...
Well, it's not bad for comics to be a little bit lighter in tone and everything, because I think that there's a certain, nihilism to it right now that, well, you read it and you don't come away from it feeling good, when the characters are killing and just mean-spirited all the time, excluding Batman, because that's who he is. But I don't know. I don't necessarily want it to end with a, justice prevailed, chum.
Chum.
One of my favorite Batman covers, our friend John blew up for me on a poster, and it has Batman, well, there's the door, chum, to Robin. And it's so quirky and out of place anymore. It just makes me laugh every time I read it.
The worst is that one of the issues from Detective before Batman 1 came out, and Batman takes a woman and puts her over his knee and says, "Be
Papa.
good now or Papa spank." It's
Papa
like,
spank.
what the heck is that?
Well, yeah, and you look back at some of the the wartime comics where the Germans and the Japanese were just these terrible stereotypes, but we were at war, so it was okay then. I mean, political correctness was not even a glimmer in someone's mind at that point.
Propaganda.
Well, yeah, it's propaganda, but it's a strange, wonderful medium, and the long, rich history of it, and we can lay claim to it and say that this is a purely American art form, and manga and anime, is just taken off on it.
This is kind of stepping off, but when you talk about those World War II comics, but then when CrossGen tried to do American Power, which Chuck Dixon was going to write, correct?
Right.
And then he got the company, and I got a lot of flack for that. Which, could you say that was being in the same vein as the old World War II comics? Or, I mean, obviously we're in a different time now, but...
Well, I think it all depends. I can't speak specifically to it and tell you, I know as a friend of Chuck and as, working for the company that any publicity is good publicity. If that book had come out, you would have seen Chuck on Crossfire, talking about it. Because, you've got the hero punching out Osama bin Laden. And, October 2001, we would have cheered, and that book would have sold 500,000 copies. 2 years, 3 years later, when we're questioning the legitimacy of the war in Iraq, it's a bit different.
Right.
But still, I mean, Osama bin Laden's a supervillain. He surrounds himself with sycophants. He is completely untouchable. He lives in a mountain hideaway and has, thousands of followers who, do his mindless bidding. I mean, he's a literal
Cobra.
supervillain.
He's Cobra.
He's Cobra, yeah. I mean, and when we finally catch the guy, we will have caught, like, the world's #1 supervillain. He's the most wanted man on the planet. But, with American Power, I mean, that book, was coming at a time, and it was politically charged, and sometimes it's okay to, run up against that. But you can't do that with characters like Superman.
Right.
Because, we need to sort of separate ourselves from it.
Captain America's not going to punch Hitler anymore.
I don't think so, because, he's still a marketing tool. He's got to sell peanut butter or,
Right.
or action figures, and someone from, the UN, Human Rights, or Amnesty International, or the ACLU will say, well, no, he can't do that, Hitler has his right to be tried before the World Court,
He did shake Donald Rumsfeld's hand, though.
Yeah, and it's weird when comics cross over like that, but DC has a history of being sued whenever their characters look like certain people. So Johnny Winter and Edgar Winter is the Autumn Brothers in the Jonah Hex miniseries that Tim Truman did. That caused a big ruckus, and there's a reason why Hellblazer, John Constantine, doesn't look exactly like Sting anymore.
Yeah.
He's Keanu Reeves now. I'm a warlock dude.
Take it you didn't like that movie, huh?
Yeah, I didn't dislike it, but I wasn't raving because it wasn't my John Constantine.
Right.
I mean, I read him in Swamp Thing, and it just that is just such a singular character, and Keanu Reeves sulking and smoking, and I don't know, just kind of generally feeling sorry for himself isn't the kind of attitude from this guy who used to be lead singer in a punk band, Mucous Membrane, and it just wasn't my Constantine. When I hear Nicolas Cage was going to play Superman, or back in '78 they were looking at John Travolta to play Superman, it wouldn't have been Superman; it would have been John Travolta playing Superman, and that's what it felt like with Hellblazer. It's Keanu Reeves playing the character, not the character being interpreted.
Right. No, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think we mostly agree.
So, would we say that this issue was a good follow-up to the first one and keeping this story going?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sorry, just woke up for a
Jeez.
second there. Jeez.
Woke up and just threw everything across the room.
No, at the store, the one gentleman who was working with me said he really liked it, and it actually it answered some questions and it opened up a whole bunch more questions. So, and I know he doesn't have nearly the historical background I do or anybody in this room or on the phone has with this book. So, for me, he liked it and he said it added more questions. So he's really looking forward to reading number 3.
Just the way we talk about it here, I have my boss at my one part-time job and one of my friends clamoring for information about what do I read first, how do I read, how do I get back into this, and it's just from us talking about it and them listening to the shows.
Jamie, how did the customers react to it? Were you seeing a lot of people buy it?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there weren't a lot of people in the store on Wednesday night, but most everybody in the store walked out with a copy of it, so it was selling as briskly as number 1 did.
Well, like it or hate it, people are talking about it, and in that kind of buzz, you just can't you can't fault. I mean, you catch lightning in a bottle, and in this industry, getting people to read and getting people to look forward to the next issue. What's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll be there to find out.
Cool.
Just a reminder to our listeners that. And Scott, this is kind of cool. You might want to check this out. One of our listeners created a website that's a full database of comics. It functions exactly like IMDb, and so everyone's in the process of entering comics in. And Andy Diggle got on last week and entered a bunch of the comics that he wrote that hadn't been entered in the system yet. So you might want to go check it out and see if you're missing some of your books in there. It's comicbookdb.com.
Okay.
And so it's pretty darn cool, and we're big fans of it because it's such a valuable resource. You can search on anything and just start. You've been to imdb.com, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so this functions exactly the same way. So you can just imagine how powerful that could be once, thousands and thousands of comics have been entered.
Well, I have a confession to make. When the bunch of us were writing the DC Comics Encyclopedia, Bob Greenberger, Phil Jimenez, Dan Wallace, and I. The internet, I never would have thought this, but the internet was invaluable because somewhere out there we could count on the fact that, Brother Power the Geek had a devoted fan, or, good God, Nightmaster, had a website devoted to him, so that the people kept up-to-date listings on all their favorite characters. And, it saved us a lot of time by being able to go to websites like the one you're speaking of and just sort of track down information we needed without sort of spending time in the stacks of DC's archives.
The good thing is, too, is the guy who runs the site is really open to suggestions and changes, and especially like someone like you going on there, I'm sure, you'd probably go, that'd be cool if it was this way, or this is really neat, I never thought of this. And so I'm sure if you give any kind of feedback, he's going to love it.
Yeah, he adds features almost every day. It's pretty darn cool.
And you can go write your bio and put a picture of yourself on, too.
Yeah, if you want to write your bio before someone else does it for you, and then,
Read Son of Vulcan.
That's right. Cool. Well, Scott, really, thanks a lot for joining us. It was a pleasure having you, and you provided.
Thanks for having me again, guys. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Cool.
It's good, great. Just neat to hear an insider's point of view. Also, be excited about something that they, waiting for the outcome. I imagine a lot of writers like you are just waiting for that, that green light to. When they say, send us your proposals.
Well, it's not just that. It's just, as a reader, as a fan, it takes me back to '85 when I was reading this, and I'm like, no, not Aqua Girl. No, not Phantom Lady. Come on. You can't kill her.
Not the 10-eyed man.
Yeah.
Come on.
What do you mean Chemo's dead? He's a big bottle of gases.
Hey, are you gonna be attending the New York Con?
I've thought about it. It just all depends. I have a young son. I'm a new father, and so it's just coordinating schedules and things like that is a whole lot different now that I'm a stay-at-home writer and a stay-at-home dad. So.
Yeah.
I feel your pain there.
All right. Well, cool. Well, let us know if you do, because we've been keeping our audience updated on who's attending and all that stuff. So.
I will, and of course, check out my website, and I usually have updates there, where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be signing at different places.
And that's scottbeatty.com, correct?
That's right.
Okay. All right, Scott.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take it easy.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps this up.
I have one little thing to add. We always seem to get bashed for downing Marvel, and I have to say, after talking to a couple people on the forum, I picked up Decimation. I liked it. I'm interested because
Are you talking about Decimation on an Infinite Crisis?
I know. But I am interested now to go. I'm interested to find out what happens now.
Out! Get out!
Hey, we should maybe make a mention about our new forum, since this is probably the only episode we can do that for this week.
Yeah, we had to switch over the forum. The first forum we had was on my personal website, which has a limited amount of bandwidth, and we were blowing through it. We were using about 1 gig a day and just forum traffic, which is ridiculous, and I only had 10 gigs a month. So I had to move it over, put up a new forum on the Comic Geek Speak domain. So if you were on the forum, you'll have to re-register on the new forum. It's on the website, and it's all like incorporated into the website now, so it's easier to navigate around and everything. And we'll see you there. All right.
Okay, I have one quick thing. Gentlemen, one of our first like professional friends that we got on the website, Tom Martinak, Mr. Fusion on the forum, has written a comic, and he sent us copies of it, just the script to look at, and I read it and helped him critique it a little bit, and he is in dire need of an artist. Now, this isn't one of these things where I'm telling you so-and-so has an idea for a comic and it may never be made. No, this is a gentleman who has a publisher, and the publisher is looking for an artist. So, and this is going to be made. It's a good book. I'm telling you, I enjoyed it. Not even knowing him, if somebody had just given me a quick synopsis, I definitely would have picked it up and looked at it. It's a pretty much straight superhero, kind of spoofy book, but it's a 3-parter, at least, and he has a beginning, a middle, and an end to this story, and he's just looking for an artist. The artist he had was asking way too much money, so they had to find a new artist, and he's really interested. I will tell you, any of the gentlemen on our forum that have been posting their artwork, he really likes a lot of what he was telling me. He liked a lot of what he saw there. So if you're interested in a book, get in touch with Tom. He's a good guy, and like I said, this isn't one of those maybe somewhere in 5 years you're going to publish a book. This is a book that is
as fast as you can draw it, it'll get published.
As ready, as quickly as you can get him the artwork, it's going to be published. So help a brother CGSer out and get in touch with him. Like I said, Mr. Fusion on the forum.
Yeah, you can private message him or something. Cool. And this episode, once again, was sponsored by Drawer Boxes, which the website is collectiondrawer.com. And if you need some boxes to store your comics, these are the best. And I have a whole bunch of them, and they're very, very cool. So check out their website, collectiondrawer.com. Anything else? Are we done?
We're done.
You know what? I didn't cue up the right music again. I had that whole episode.
Tisk.
I don't even see it here in my thing. It's not in the right place, so yeah, that's just not going to work.
Breaking their hearts.
So we'll see you next time.